Hi, my name is Tony DeVito. I work with chemical specifics, and I'm here to help you understand what you need to do to be compliant with New York City's new regulations on Legionnaire's disease prevention. The city requires that you, as the responsible person, test the water regularly and do some inspections. For starters, there are 4 basic parameters that you have to test for 3 times a week. Usually that'll be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can't miss more than 2 days. So in other words, if you test on Friday, someone has to be in to test on Monday, even if it's a holiday. Sometime at the end of this video, perhaps we'll discuss ways of automating the testing. But for right now, you're going to be responsible for that. So don't skip more than 2 days. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, ideal kind of schedule. Okay, so the 4 things that you need to test for every week are pH. pH is a measure of the acidity of water. Conductivity is sometimes called total dissolved solids, which is a measure of the mineral content of the water. You'll read it on your controllers and on your test devices as conductivity. You'll have to test for temperature. Obviously, you know what that is. They want to know what the temperature of your condenser water, your cooling tower water is. And you'll need to test for halogen. Halogen can be bromine or chlorine. It's just a name for an oxidizing biocide. That biocide has to feed every day at the same time. You'll be testing to make sure it's present after it feeds. That halogen could be chlorine or it could be bromine. You'll have the appropriate test kit for your particular treatment chemical. Now, you want to test this within about a half hour, an hour or so after the chemical has fed. The reason for that is that the chlorine, if you have a swimming pool, you know the chlorine and the bromine, if you add them, they get used up over time. So if you wait too long to test for them, they'll be gone. Of course, if you test before they've been fed, you won't find them at all. So the reason why you're doing that is you want to confirm that, say at 9 o'clock that pump goes on, feeds the chlorine in for 10 minutes, that at 9:30 or 10 o'clock that chlorine is really present, confirming that it's fed. That has to happen every day of the week. You only have to test for it 3 times a week, just like these other parameters. You also have some duties to test for and record. Remember, all this has to be recorded in your logs as well. Now, you will test for these 4 parameters. Some of you will have consultants that have written your maintenance and prevention plan, that book that you keep your logs in. Some of them will have written these rules so that not only do you have to test it with devices, your test kits, but you also have to go over to the water treatment controller and read the water treatment controller and record the readings for pH, conductivity, and temperature that are on the water treatment controller as well. So you may have to do that 3 times a week as well, or maybe only once a week if that's the way the person, or not at all for that matter, if that's the way the person that's written your plan has scheduled you to do it. That's kind of your Bible. Once a week, you have to test for bacteria level in the cooling tower. That's called HPC, heterotrophic plate count. It's bacteria level. You do that with a dip slide that looks something like this device. You take this out, take a sample of the water from an appropriate location. We'll be talking later on about where to take the sample from. You dip it into the water sample, you shake it off, you put it back in here, and you place it into a device that'll keep it the same temperature for 2 days. And after 2 days, you take it out and you read it. We'll get more into how that test actually is performed later, but you have to do that once a week. You have to record your chemical usage. In other words, how far have the chemical tanks gone down? That's so that we know that those chemical pumps are actually feeding when they go on and off, and they're not airbound or have some other issue. So once a week, you're going to have to record the chemical usage, how much chemical has been used in each of the 3 water treatment tanks. You're going to have to do a walk-around inspection of your cooling tower on a weekly basis. You'll have a checklist that the person that prepared your MPP, Maintenance and Prevention Plan book, will have prepared for you. It's going to be basic. It's going to ask you if there's overspray, if there's leaks from the cooling tower, if you can observe any slime and algae, and so on and so forth. So it's a basic inspection. You have to do that once a week. You also should be recording the pump and timer settings on your controller. Often, if things are working well, you'll record them. You'll work with your water treatment company to get the right readings, what percentages the pumps are on, what the timer settings are, and so on and so forth. You'll record those in your book, and week to week they won't change, but you should record them in your book. Occasionally, if there's an excursion, not enough chemical being fed, they'll have to alter those timer and pump settings, and you should update each week. You should update what the current setting is. Often the same as last week, occasionally somewhat different. Okay. Also, one other thing that some consultants have been asking you to do is not only measure the level of inhibitor, of halogen that's in the water 3 times a week, but also to measure the corrosion inhibitor that's being used. Often that's molybdate, occasionally it could be some other chemical. Okay, so depending on what your consultant has put in the book, you might have to test for that molybdate inhibitor occasionally, once a week, or maybe 3 times a week along with these others. Okay, but as far as the city is concerned, these 4 are absolutely required. And as far as the city is concerned, all of these settings recorded in your log on a weekly basis are absolutely required as well. Okay, so we're going to break now, and we're going to come back, and we're going to actually look at the tests and the logs and see how we go ahead and do these tests and how we fill out that log. Thanks for listening.